might get discouraged. If he was kind of on the fence, if it was like one of these sort of like half-hearted things where they're not quite killing you yet, they're just sort of touching you and you don't want to be touched, and you want to give them that and give them this, it can work. But your defanging has to be backed up by the ability to box and wrestle. All the weapon stuff in the world won't help you if you can't box and wrestle. So we're gonna throw her across, relax a little bit, then do a jab. Get it full. Yeah, that's exactly, yeah. All right, and then, when using a tactical pen, is it better to strike or to grapple? Spoiler, the answer is yes. Kubotans, flashlights, tactical pens, what have you, they get a bad rep mostly because they're very difficult to use effectively. And if you can use them effectively, there's a good chance you could have solved the problem without it. But there is a set of circumstances where something like this can come into play. The reason I don't like Kubotans is because they're useless pieces of trash. Like, they don't do anything. The reason I like flashlights and pens is because they are flashlights and pens, as well as possibly a force multiplier. I'm going to show you the best technique for striking with this thing. Coincidentally, it's the best technique for striking with a flashlight, striking with a knife, striking with any single hand implement that's about this size. The best striking technique, coincidentally, it's also sort of a grappling technique. I'm going to teach you the setup, but I want to talk about this place in New York called the Dragon Combat Club. I recently did a seminar tour in New York City. I taught a bunch of my own seminars, but I went to this little place called the Dragon Combat Club. The Dragon Combat Club is a group run by my friend, Hen Z. It is a community-based self-defense group, and they're primarily focused on the Asian American Pacific Islander community, particularly after a recent spike in incidents involving those people in New York City. It's a real problem, and he's taught me a lot about it. And his group provides self-defense training and self-defense weapons to people that might not otherwise get into a traditional martial arts gym. I wanted to get out there and work with them, but I didn't want to turn it into one of my seminars because I didn't want to take away from their message or what they're doing. So Henzi and I didn't tell anybody anything. We didn't advertise it. I just popped up. And one of the ways that I was able to make that happen is the Atomic Bear. The founder of Atomic Bear flew out to New York. He brought a bunch of pens. He gave them to all the participants. He sponsored the event. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the pen. I've done a full review already. I'll link it up there. But I'm going to show you some of the techniques that we went over from that session, that training session. This is the Stealth Pen by the Atomic Bear. It's sexy. She's got some curves to it. She also has a little bit of teeth without being too oogie. And then it's also got that guy right there. The aesthetics on this are on point too. It's hard to see on camera. The barrel is not rounded. These are flat surfaces and these are grippy. And then it's got this sexy little curve that just on camera, it just doesn't look. She's a beaut. The camera doesn't do it justice. You need to get your hands on one of these. But this, it's just so good. So what we're gonna be covering is attached striking with an implement. And this would work for a flashlight, tactical pen, screwdriver, knife, stick, anything, a camera in your hand, anything in your hand. We're going to be talking about that, but the delivery system is going to be Greco-Roman wrestling, which from watching you guys' videos, everyone seems to be pretty familiar with that. We're going to pretend that, we'll pretend that Jeff could out-grapple me, right? And that I wouldn't be able to swim in, and he would use maybe his elbow. Yeah, he'd give me problems here, right? So I'm having trouble doing that. So you can even kind of show, oh, I can't do it. What we're gonna do is take our hands and we're gonna pinch like this and give him a little pull like that, right? After we pull there, you can go back 1, 2, and he'd do the same. I'm not gonna let him in, he pulls and then lets me out. But really feel like you bite and pull on people, okay? All right? Sir.
Should they feel pain in the wrists?
It's unnecessary. It's more about just the friction. It's not really like a kind of bone-on-bone pain compliance thing. I'm just using it. What I want you to realize is that technically he's like winning the position, but I'm not done.
Yeah.
You know, if he grabs my wrist, everyone's like, oh, he's got control. Well, I've got him too. You know what I mean? Like, I just want you to not think, oh, I'm defeated unless I do this. Oh no, right? I can pull him and then I can get the bicep control. Nice. Cool? All right, go. Yeah, pull on a little bit. Good shot. With these teeth on this thing, I'm not going to be using this on my heavy bag. I'm going to be using this. It's just some like foam. I've talked about these things before. We handed them out at the training session so that everyone could kind of work with each other. Little piddly little pit pats, that's not going to do it. That's not what we want. And we don't have the room necessarily to throw big, huge shots. But how do we hurt someone in a short amount of space? And that's by throwing this strike late. We're going to generate the strike, the force from the strike by going late, which means I'm going to start the strike but leave the implement there. Whether that's the weapon or whether that's my fist, I'm going to start the strike and leave it there and then finish the strike. And what that does is it gives me more travel and torque than if I just sent it. And with an implement in your hand, there's a chance that this might be hard enough. And under stress, you're probably going to short stroke this thing. But if we practice super duper late and then send it, in under stress, when that deteriorates and gets smaller, we might get something a little better. Whereas if we practice something smaller under stress, it's just going to turn into this. And you're not going to... These are not ideal conditions. We should probably go inside. I don't want lighting to strike this thing. It's wet. What I've got going on here, this is an archery target with a laundry mesh bag. So I'm testing like impact, like how much can I give it before it starts to slip, with and without thumb perch. Thumb perch, obviously, I can give it a lot more and not get any slip. And I'm also working with this magnet carry. This is a option that Atomic Bear has. It's a little magnet. I've got it on my t-shirt. That's a pretty cool, like if you use a pen a lot at work, which I realize is less and less people, but it's never a bad idea to carry a pen. With thumb perch, no slippage, doesn't really hurt my thumb like you might think. And I'm learning about how much these teeth will bite and catch things and how much that will impact my swing. And I'm hitting a semi-soft target. Because striking with these things, that's one of the questions that we always get. Is like, if I hit hard, you know, is it gonna go like that? Without a thumb perch, eventually, you know, three good strikes, and then I'm down with the thumb perch. I can hit pretty hard and not really lose any of it. But actually, it's funny, all this bullshit I'm doing, the magnet carry has been like the most interesting part to me. That's very fast. And it's not as obtrusive. Like, that's not abnormal if you wear a jacket or like a pull-up. Oh, we better go inside. I'm holding on to this, and he starts that wind up and creating tension, turn, and then patwang. I want you to think of that in your brain, like there's something holding this back, and then it goes. Because I don't want you to start with the weapon. I want you to start with this right here, and it's going to allow you to generate a ton of force in a short space. All right, whether something's in your hand or not. And extending at the end is not necessary. And in fact, for this exercise today, I don't recommend it, because we're not trying to knock him out. We're trying to hit him and still maintain a good inside position so we can then later use that. So to practice that, what that'll look like is he's in for, I go in for one, in for two, right? And now I'm going to start my strike from here. I'm going to turn and let that strike happen. The question I'll usually get, I'll go ahead and cut you off at the pass, is why not a punch? All right, why not a punch? Because in a punch, I would have to get this, to make it a good punch, I have to get this elbow up behind it, right? And he has his hands on me and he's preventing me from doing that. And it takes more space, more time, and gives him more visual and tactile cues that I'm about to strike him. Turn, and then let the strike go. Cool? Take it off here. Make your fist.
Make the fist first.
See this right here? Turn.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Patwang.
Hand a bunch of these things to a bunch of guys.
Targets is anywhere in this triangle. There's a triangle from the chin to the carotid artery up behind the ear. Anywhere in that triangle is cool. Right? In the heat of the moment, whatever. I always aim here. I just default to here. That's just what where I hit. And that way, if I can't be too low, and if I'm too high, it's okay. All right. So I just aim at that carotid artery.
So you have to have the inside control when you do that, right?
Yeah, you have to be inside. If he's outside, I'll never get it. Right. So if you already have it in your hand, it's a pretty simple affair to get it inside and then turn it like that. All right. Which is another reason why The other two reasons why I like this better than the punch is if I have a weapon, this is more conducive to using that. The other one is that shoulder is a problem with the punch. In our sparring round, I got clinched up with Jeff and I tried to punch him and he rolled that shoulder and stopped that punch, right? With this, you have a little more leeway to cheat around that thing. You know what I mean? Especially if you're turning your body to do it. We are generating power before this is moved. Turn. Bing. I've never thrown a football, but I think, I don't know, comment below if you've ever thrown a football and know if this is right or not. I think you don't throw footballs like that. You sort of pull the football more than push it. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's one of the analogies I've used. I probably shouldn't use it because I've never played football, but think more about pulling this strike along than pushing this strike along. And you might think, yeah, you know, my triceps are super duper powerful. There ain't no way they're more powerful than all of that right there. Feet, you could turn or not turn. It doesn't matter much. This doesn't matter as much as people make it out to be. It's just like when you're learning your hook. We sort of lie and tell you that you need to turn your foot. The foot turning is a byproduct of a strike thrown well. It's not necessary for the strike to be thrown well. The hip is what has to turn. This has to turn. Boom. Think about how hard a hammer fist can be if you turn your hips. And look at it doesn't take a ton of space to throw this thing, man. It's kind of crazy, actually. We're always so obsessed with the punching, but it doesn't take much to hit hard with this. And you can get more creative with the angles. We recently did that karate chop video with Sensei Seth. Similar concept. It's a strike we've been working on a lot in here. And I wasn't gonna share it. It was gonna be something we held on to, something proprietary. But I really wanted to share what they're doing at the Dragon Combat Club and really highlight how great it was for Jeff from Atomic Bear to go out and be supportive of that. He flew out there on his own dime. As tactical pens go, this one is nearly perfect. The size, the shape, it's got a polymer body, this bolt action, this healthy rubbery thumb purchase. It really checks all the boxes. I did a full review, I'll link up there, but more importantly, the founder of Atomic Bear sponsored this trip and this video and made sure that these got into the hands of people that need them. When he heard about the Dragon Combat Club, he was like, oh yeah, I know about those guys, because they were customers of him and he was aware of them. So he said, I want to go out there. I'm going to fly out there and train on my own dime. I'm going to bring a bunch of pens. We gave pens to all the participants. Just a good dude and a good group of people. And they knew about each other before I even dreamt of making this introduction. But go support the Dragon Combat Club. Links in the description below if you want more information about them. They're in New York City. If you or someone that you know is maybe in need of some self-defense training in New York City, refer them to them and go support the Atomic Bear. They're supporters of this channel, supporters of the Dragon Combat Club, and Jeff from Atomic Bear is just a great dude. What? I thought it sucked. What? I couldn't. There was no good Ukis in there. Like there was no good. Uki? Like that guy that helps you demo it. Oh yeah. I couldn't find anybody good to do it.
Are you cooking?
Yeah. Jeff couldn't do it. He was doing it. That's the joke. No, it's the joke.
Oh damn.
Golly.
I didn't understand. I didn't either.
Yeah.
I was like, what's wrong?